motion regarding the agenda?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. I would like, for the sake of clarity, if the DBRA administration would give us the rules for public comments and meetings for this meeting. That could be read.
Certainly, Mr. Chair. So we do have the rules for the public meetings, public comment that the board approved previously in May of last year, and just did want to review those. So just want to remind the board as well as the public of the board is here at the table. We ask that for members of the community, public that are in attendance, if you do want to talk after the meeting, if you please do so out in the lobby, so that we can maintain order here at the table as well as have a timely meeting. Also ask that the chair be the person who's running the meeting, and then also we will have time as part of public comment. So to please note the time for public comment. We'll have both online public comment as well as in-person public comment for the call of the chairs. Just wanted to remind everyone of those rules before we get started.
Okay, so for the record, I'm going to run the meeting. This is, again, this is just to reiterate in regards to the adoption of our rules from May of last year. Given that, so thank you so much, Mr. Rosberg. We're going to go ahead and move forward. Ask the board members if you would be so kind to take a look at our meeting minutes from our last meeting. Then once you're done, I can get a motion regarding that. That would be great.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
I have one question about the minutes. I noticed in the motion on the main topic at the last meeting that the no votes and the abstain vote were recorded, but those who voted yes were not recorded. And is that standard practice? I'm not remembering.
Well, typically,
So those who
Mr.
voted,
Chair, typically, unless there's a roll call, did we do a roll call?
no, we did not.
No, we did. Unless there is a roll call, we only highlight the abstentions.
and is that okay?
Are you
Where's
saying,
the lawyer?
is it the assumption that is made that the fact that if they record abstentions or if they record the nays, that it's assumed that everyone else?
Well, that's obviously the assumption is that those of us who vote no or abstain are on the record. And those who vote yes should also be on the record. That's the concern I have. I'm not sure.
So call roll call.
Through the chair.
Yes.
I mean, either way of putting it, as long as, in terms of the record, we just need to, it's a fine way to record the votes. If the board's desire is that every person and the way that they vote is recorded in the minutes for all or certain items, we can do that. But the way that it is recorded is a fine way is an acceptable way to record it. But if the board wants to change it, we can change it.
Well, my concern is that these are public minutes and we're witness to the meeting, right? And in general, the minutes are accurate. But for members of the public, especially with projects like this, who want to read the minutes and really fully understand who said what and who was there and who voted yes and who voted no, I really think it's a better practice to record all the votes.
So what I'll do then to make it easy for the administration to keep records of that, because typically when we vote and you have those who are in approval, we just go aye, right? And so other than capturing the individuals that are not. So we'll do a roll call. It'd be real simple.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions, comments? All right, let's go ahead and take a look at any other comments in relations to our agenda, not agenda, but our meeting minutes. We have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, thank you. Let's go ahead and move forward with our public comment.
Mr. Chair, how the time for public comment, would you like to?
We always do that depending on how many we have.
We have, I'm asking, folks who are online, if you'd like to provide public comment, would you please raise your hand? And anyone who's joining us in person, if you could raise your hand if you have public comment. One there. We're calling for public comment, and then we are going to close calling for public comment. So if you'd like to provide public comment, please raise your hand. Online and one in the audience.
Right, so let's do 2 minutes.
Okay, so we're allowing 2 minutes. We will be,
Cut it off.
and we're cutting it off. And we'll begin with the gentleman in person.
So we're gonna ask you to, we're gonna start with you. Please state your name for the record.
John Perkins, with Michigan Regional Carpenters Council for Millwrights. Happy New Year, everyone. I am here in support of the Future of Health project. Men and women that I serve in Detroit, on the southeast side of Michigan, we know that these projects like this put food on our table. We know when developers like Pistons and Henry Ford Health develop, not only does carpenters go to work, Detroiters go to work. We know that opportunities like this allow our members to create a sustainable lifestyle that allows them to build a middle-class future for not only them, but their family. We know when we can put food on their table and they can make money and put money in their pocket, they give back to the community in which they reside, and the whole community thrives. We also know without these projects, without these opportunities, our works with recruiting Detroiters to get into the skilled trades go to waste. In order for us to create that equitable workforce that we need to create a sustainable city, we need projects like this to create job opportunities for those young men and women that we create. The partnerships through our career apprenticeship programs and also our apprenticeship programs, we recruit hundreds and hundreds of Detroit residents on a quarterly basis. And we know that projects like this are the ones that put them to work. So I urge the board here this evening to take these comments in consideration and vote yes on this project, because we know if this project comes to place, Detroit will go to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Perkins. And Ms. Canal, you take us through.
Okay, certainly, Mr. Chair, and as indicated, we had 5 hands raised. 1 has been raised after we closed public comment. First, we'll start with Mr. Stephen Haring.
Mr. Haring.
Mr. Haring, the floor is yours. You have to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My name's Stephen Haring, longtime resident downtown, and I also a business owner downtown. I fully support this project. You know, I've watched all the NAP meetings, and I just love the hero evaluations and the challenges they gave to the developers. You know, I see this as potential for positive outcomes. You know, the opposition often lacks understanding of business and real estate. It's crucial to highlight Theodore Pride, a leading opponent, was convicted of embezzling $700,000 from Detroit public schools. You know, that shows how credible the Detroit People's Platform and Detroiters for Tax Justice is. But despite their challenges like misplacement, which has been a problem in the city, CBLs like this in Michigan Central have successfully protected long-term residents from displacement. You know, when there is no development, you know what happens? Slumlords come, and then you're going to see mass unjust evictions of paying tenants. And, you know, I know Sugar Law knows that very well. Importantly, you know, West End Boulevard homeowners, including several WGBC members, will greatly benefit from this with the increased property values and development process. You know, Henry Ford has been in this city for hundreds of years. And, you know, this area has just been so underinvested. And, you know, we're starting to see progress. And, you know, I think this will do a lot. And, you know, I love that they're really getting the young people involved, the young Detroiters. So I'm in complete support.
Thank you, Mr. Hari. We appreciate your comments, and we're going to ask all of our other comments to not be personal. No personal attacks, please. Just stick to the item at hand.
Oh, okay, up next is Russ Blount. Mr. Blount, you have to unmute yourself and then the floor is yours.
I am unmuted. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay, thank you. Right, I'm speaking in opposition to tax subsidies. I'm not speaking in opposition to the construction and the project, but the way it's funded. I had the privilege of serving 12 years on the Detroit Library Commission, and I was engaged with our school district on issues for 30 years. And I know the suffering that both institutions are going through. If you ask the average person or that what are the standards they think of for the basics of community health and projects, they don't say build luxury condos. They say schools, they say libraries, they say parks. We have seen through the processes of recent years that everyone thinks building something outside of those and at the expense of these important institutions and depleting their resources. Right now, because of all the tax captures and other practices of the city, 19% of the library revenue is being redirected away from the library, and it's suffering. Our schools cannot buy bonds and create a capital program for building improvements because the take from the millage for the from tax captures tells the bond market we don't have the capacity to pay them back. We need to stop the looting, and we need you right now stepping in to protect the libraries and the schools and the parks and the taxing authorities. Let the man who has $50 billion pay for it himself.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Blount.
Okay, up next is Adam with Detroiters for Tax Justice. Adam, you should be able to provide public comment once you unmute yourself.
Can I be heard?
Yes, Adam.
Okay. As a taxpayer in Detroit, I'm an unwilling investor in this project, and I don't see how I or many other Detroiters are going to see a return on our unwilling investment. I don't see how they can justify the extraction of $36 million from our school millage, $9 million from the library millage, $12 million from the state education millage, $6 million from the special education millage, etc., for basically what's a private for-profit project. Everybody wants more healthcare, everybody wants more development, everybody wants more jobs, but why does it have to come with the catch of giving away tax money to billionaires and displacing legacy Detroiters? Go get a loan from the bank. Don't ask the taxpayer. We're still paying off bonds on schools that have been demolished. We always see the unions showing up for these tax giveaways to billionaires too. And I'm not sure I understand that. I'm a tradesman too. I'm a high-rise window washer for a company in Detroit. So I could definitely get fed off of this project and others like it. But my MO is that I want to make sure that the members of the community who are not doing as well as me get fed before I do. So I say absolutely no more giveaways.
Thank you for your comments, Adam.
Up next, we have Theo Pride. Mr. Pride, unmute yourself. The floor is yours.
Hello, may I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you, Mr. Pride.
Oh, great. Theo Pride, Detroit People's Platform and District 2 resident. You know, I think the hospital expansion is great, of course, along with the research center, all great things, thumbs up. But as it concerns the tax incentives being considered here for the future health development, what we should be focused on and evaluating is the merit of the housing piece being done by the Pistons and Tom Gores, which is getting more than 80% of the tax incentives for this whole project. In looking at the housing, I think there are a few problems to consider. One, the luxury housing here does not fit the needs of the neighborhood or the city as a whole. This looks like workforce housing, which the developers omit themselves, and the units are small and too expensive for the average working class Detroiter with family and children. Two, the cost of the project looks to be excessively high for the Detroit market. Compared to similar developments in the city, this cost seems to be much higher. If the project is consistent with similar developments, we should be looking like, is this deal fair and justifiable? Thirdly, there are not enough protections for existing residents living in the impact area, which is comprised mostly of seniors, families, and low-income renters. We know projects like this initiate gentrification, which spurs displacement. Residents ask for investments in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund and a community land trust, which we know mitigate displacement, and the developers fail to properly invest in these things. So considering all these things, I would implore that this honorable body look at the merits of the housing piece before approving and making a decision on the transformation of Brownfield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pride, for your comments.
Okay, and the last individual who had their hand up before public comment was closed, call for public comment was closed, is Apollo Robbins. Apollo, you are unmuted. And if you unmute yourself, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Apollos Robbins. I'm with the Michigan Regional Carpenters. One reason that I approve of, I want to say yes on this residential thing is not only because it helps me benefit through working for the company, but also my brother lives in that impact area. And with that, I know for sure with the new project, new businesses, and new construction going on, it'll help lower the rate of criminal activities. Also, placing jobs in those who are in disparaging circumstances' hand. And also, it helps us makes the target of grabbing hold of those in the resident area to also give them a new job and a new purpose and a way of life. Also, I want to say that it helps us benefit in a big way in the overall throughout the city. Knowing that the city haven't really seen too many improvements, mostly downtown, but it also draw in more people to help the city become more diverse. With the city being more diverse, it helps cultural changes. It helps gravitate new businesses towards our area. Detroit is in the huge need of new faces, new changes, new developments. Anything new that can come to the city, I think would help benefit in the overall. So with anything, there's always going to be a bright side and a not so bright side. But I think with reading over everything and seeing all the benefits, it'll definitely help our students, knowing that if they go to those schools in the impact area, they get to go to school for free to become doctors, nurses, help assist in the healthcare area. So not only does it help us gain interest now in the city, but also helps our children in the future to become doctors, nurses, whatever they fit to be, and helps put towards the Detroit promise, which help benefits our children go to school.
Thank you, Mr. Robbins, for your
And
comments.
Mr. Chair, there is another individual in person raised their hand.
Did we get them before they cut it off?
Yeah, no, I think we cut it off. I'm just letting.
Okay, we're gonna go ahead and call because we had another on the call, so that wouldn't be right.
Right, I agree.
So we're gonna turn it over to Ms. Kapler to give us the overview regarding the project, which is the future of health transformational Brownfield Plan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to provide a brief overview of the highlights of each of the 5 projects included within the Future of Health Transformational Brownfield Plan, and then invite the development team to respond to any questions from the board. So the Detroit Pistons, Henry Ford Health System, and Michigan State University will be the developers of the projects included in the Future of Health Transformational Brownfield Plan. The first project is the construction of a new medical research center, which will be the location of advanced health science and medical research to be conducted pursuant to a collaboration agreement between Henry Ford Health and MSU. It's currently anticipated that that project will create 558 permanent jobs, 363 of which are of the direct permanent jobs are estimated to be net new to the city and state, with 195 of those jobs relocating from the existing One Ford Place. Total investment for that project is estimated to be $393 million, and the developer is requesting approximately $39.6 million in tax capture for that project. The next project is the adaptive reuse of One Ford Place, which is the current headquarters for Henry Ford Health. This project will consist of approximately 403 mixed income residential apartments, including 20% at affordable rates of an average of 50% AMI. There will also be retail and commercial space included on the first floor. This project is expected to create 11 permanent property management jobs by the owner and 87 permanent jobs by the future commercial tenants. Total investment for that project is estimated at $189 million, and the developer is requesting approximately $103.3 million in tax capture for that project. The next project, called Residential 2, is the planned new construction of approximately 154 mixed income apartments and 5 stories above first floor retail commercial space. 20% of the 154 apartments will be at an average of 50% AMI. That project is expected to create 4 permanent property management jobs by the owner and 41 permanent jobs by the future retail tenants. Total investment for the Residential 2 project is estimated at $79 million. The developer is requesting approximately $36.6 million in tax capture for that project. The fourth project is another new construction mixed use building called Residential 3. It'll contain approximately 105 mixed income apartments and 5 stories above first floor retail space. 20% of those units will be available at an average of 50% AMI. That project is expected to create 3 permanent property management jobs by the owner and 31 permanent jobs by the future retail tenants. Total investment for that project is estimated at $54 million, and the developer is requesting approximately $25.7 million in tax capture for that project. The fifth and final project included in the Future of Health TBP is the construction of a new parking structure with approximately 804 spaces, and it'll be approximately 6 stories, and will provide parking for employees of the research center and a parking option for the future tenants, residential tenants of the Residential 1, 2, and future residents of One Ford Place, the Residential 2 and Residential 3 mixed-use buildings. No permanent jobs are expected to be created by the parking structure. Total investment for the parking structure is estimated at $58 million, and the developer is requesting approximately $14.4 million in tax capture for that project. To provide an overview, the 5 projects represent a total of $773 million in investment. A total of 4 new construction development projects exceed 900,000 total square feet of redevelopment on current surface parking lots, in addition to the adaptive reuse of over 600,000 square foot historic structure in the New Center neighborhood. There will be the construction of approximately 662 new residential units, of which 132 will be reserved for residents making an average of 50% of the AMI. And these projects are expected to create or support approximately 2,145 direct construction jobs and 735 direct permanent jobs. The CAC reviewed this project at its meeting on December 13th and voted to recommend approval of the TBP back to this body. The DBRA staff also held a local public hearing on Thursday, January 4th in person at the Pistons Performance Center. The minutes, including any written public comment that were submitted to us, are included in your packet. The TBP remains unchanged from when you saw it on December 13th, with the exception of the addition of 15 new support letters, which were included in the plan that was distributed, and also 1 letter that was received this morning, which I provided a printed copy of. I will turn it back to the chair.
Thank you, Ms. Gatworth. If the board does not oppose, we'd like to call the developers up. All right, the development team. I ask you to come this way, please. So we would like for you to introduce yourselves, and then there's an overview I'd like to provide before we ask the board members to comment. So,
Yeah, I'll start. I'm Reginald Bernard. I'm the CEO of the Detroit Pistons. Thank you for your time.
yeah.
Thank you for your time. Stephen Welch, Vice President of Diversity, Equity, and Detroit Pistons.
Nice to see you again. Terry Darby, Vice President, Planning, Development, Design, Henry Ford Health.
Good afternoon, Richard Barr from Hahnemann, assisting the development team.
Good afternoon, Denise Brooks Williams, Executive Vice President and CEO of Care Delivery Operations with Henry Ford Health.
Good evening, Arlene Daly with Michigan State University Community Engagement Lead.
Good evening, Barry Blackwell. I lead our Detroit Community Engagement on behalf of Henry Ford Health. Good to see you all.
I am going to be apologizing for the mic. You guys prefer I just speak loudly and don't mute it?
As long as the public.
Okay, can you all hear me?
People online
Yeah.
here. If you come to the front of the room, it might,
Okay,
through the chair,
better.
it might work.
Yeah.
Instead of through the chair, we're trying to work out a
No
few
problem.
bugs with that, but I think we stand
Stand right here.
It should be good. Thank
My
you.
pleasure. Okay.
Give us 1 second, let us get the logistics together.
Yeah.
There we go.
Pull it up on the screen.
Oh, yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you. So again, I'm Denise Brooks Williams, really proud to be the representative of this amazing team. We've called our work the future of health, and I know that you guys have probably lots of details related to it. But in terms of a quick summary overview, this really is our opportunity, we feel, to continue to transform the neighborhood that we've set for 109 years, we being Henry Ford Health. We've talked about our staying and the things that we've done. I heard one of our commenters talk a little bit about this being a major investment, but we've invested continuously, never at this magnitude. It's not been $2 billion to have a replacement hospital, but incrementally. So we have a new cancer center that's in the corridor. We've brought parking structures with the strength of that, but making sure that we had parking. But we've also renovated our campus. This is transformational, though, what we're proposing to you, and hoping that we'll get your support to be able to move forward with, and that it allows us to also bring our research facility to life. We have a 30-year relationship with Michigan State University, and this project will really be the physical manifestation of the work that's already underway. And that research is going to be transformational, really because of what it will bring for Detroiters, being able to look at health status challenges that we have and really start to crack that code on how we can be a healthier community. The other component of that, of course, is our continued relationship with the Pistons. And so the Pistons component of this is a continuation of the relationship we've had right in that corridor where we have the Pistons Performance Center, where we also have our Center for Athletic Medicine. This allows us to bring what we believe a live, work, play environment into being, because they've come on board to bring the housing component to this. And we know that that is a huge part of the discussion and dialogue that we've had around the housing. But if you look at the vision and the conversations that we've had, our team has spoken to over 1,000 individuals, been to numerous community meetings, and we talked to our own staff. So we know that there still is a gap around both affordable and market rate housing in that community. And you all, I know, look all across the country at what it is to have a world-renowned research academic environment. And people want to be able to live and work and walk in that area where they may be serving. So we believe that the housing is a critical component to this, and thank the Pistons for being a part of that. I will pause and just look to my colleagues and see if I missed any key part of the overview, and allow you guys to ask us the questions that you have.
All right, board members. All right, Mr. George?
Through the chair, that the total cost is around 2 billion for this, for
The
these
2
5
billion.
projects?
So 3 billion for all of the projects. I was mentioning the replacement hospital component and the new rehab hospital that will be a part of that was the 2 billion I referenced.
Thank you. And then one other follow-up question, the tax capture, how much are we asking for in abatements or a percentage of?
He's going to give me the exact number. I'm going to give him the mic. Just a moment.
If I may through the chair.
Yeah.
Richard, if you could go to the podium. So
Yeah,
we
we got
got
you
that
on
on our
camera.
district. Thank you.
Mr. George, is your question, how much is the reimbursement under the Brownfield Plan? Yeah, exactly. Out of the 3 billion, what do you need out of us? So the total reimbursement under the TBP that's proposed is a combination of property taxes, income taxes, withholding taxes, sales and use tax exemption benefit. So that's not all the traditional Brownfield Plan buckets, it's more, is 231,774,802. A portion of that is property taxes that are captured, approximately $117 million. And the rest consists of withholding taxes, and these are state taxes, state withholding and income taxes that the state would approve that are unique to a transformational Brownfield Plan, as well as income tax capture from construction workers, again, state taxes that are captured, and state exemption for sales and use tax, another unique feature for TBP. But from a traditional standpoint, what brownfield capture, what property tax capture, that's just that $117 million number. 117 million. Yes. Now I just have one follow-up question. How can you have a 800 space parking structure with no employees? The expectation, I can let Henry Ford speak more to that, is most parking structures these days do not require full-time employees. The day of security or someone at the front door, nothing? Right, so the expectation is that Henry Ford, through the way they manage the campus, will be having people managing, doing those tasks, whether they'll be employees of that building and whether it is a job created at that building or whether it would be their security company that goes from building to building or the maintenance people that go from building to building. We decided that number was not yet determined. And rather than project 3 jobs or 5 or 10, that we would put 0 for purposes of what the promise is, knowing that there are services to be provided, but at this point, the detail hasn't been generated of exactly which entity would provide those cross services, similar to having a management company for an office building. Sure, no, I understand. I was just curious. That's all I have. Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Wiki?
Thank you. Since you're there, Mr. Barr, and we're talking about tax capture, this, as John was suggesting, this body usually deals with just regular brownfield, and this is a whole different scenario. And the reason, from what I can glean, that it's different is because you're capturing income taxes
And sales.
and withholding. And my question is, when I pay my City of Detroit income tax, I do it now through my state tax return. So are the income taxes being captured include City of Detroit income taxes and state income taxes, or only the 4.5% state income tax?
The TBP authorizes the capture only of state income taxes. It does not affect city income taxes, no matter how you pay it. So if it's paid on your state return or coordinated, it is separated, and none of the projections have any consideration of city income tax except for the estimate of how much income tax is generated for the city. This gets into the benefit to the city, is in there without any impact of capture because it's not being captured. So it's all strictly the 4 point, whatever the rate is here, 4.25, 4.1, whatever it'll be next year. That's all we're talking about here.
Okay, but having said that, some of our income tax that we pay to the state does come back and help Detroit writ large. I mean, right? We have to admit that, you know, all of the employees that we're capturing, and the residents of the apartments, all their income tax is being captured. I hope everybody gets that. These are not all going to be new people moving to Detroit for the first time. Some of them are going to be moving there from my neighborhood or, Juan's neighborhood or, wherever. So I guess I'm just trying to make this clear for the record that, it's not like we're just giving up property tax revenue like we usually do on brownfields. We're giving up more.
Anybody else?
I have a few questions. So average of 50% AMI, what does that mean?
I can answer that.
Typically.
I'm sorry. The original proposal was that 20% of the units would be limited to 50% of AMI. The NAC requested deeper affordability. And the agreement that was reached with the NAC is that there would be units that would be 30%. That would be 10% of the affordable units would be capped at 30% of AMI. And then 10% of the affordable units would be capped at 70% of AMI. So when we say average, the 30s and the 70s and the 50s all add up to an average of 50%, but there'll be ranges, some at 30%, some at 50, some at 70 in the Western market.
Okay. Number of jobs is very high, 735 jobs that will be created or supported. Could you break that down? I assume supported means it's an existing job, it's just being moved over to the new building. So what of the 735, how many are actual new jobs?
So all those are new jobs. There are other jobs that are being retained. Those are all new. So on table 11 of the plan, which is way back there, in there, there's a table on a project by project basis, indicating that there are new direct jobs at the research center, 558 jobs. And then each of the other buildings has between 34 and 98 jobs, some of which are anticipating tenant jobs, and some are anticipating management company jobs.
So what's the difference between a created job and a supported job? Just explain that.
I'm sorry, where does it say supported? Maybe I missed it, or maybe someone can correct me if I've got the numbers wrong. Anyone from the team that I?
So I think your numbers are correct. I think it would be helpful to.
So, yeah, thank you. So in the summary, in the memo that summarizes it, overall transformational impacts, creating or supporting approximately blah, 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 construction jobs. Creating or supporting approximately 735 direct permanent jobs. So what does creating or supporting mean? That's what I'm trying to get at. What is that distinction?
I hate to say I didn't write the memo, but let me consult with Jake. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, that is reflective of the net new jobs associated.
I think the language is confusing. Yeah. We will accept that, but it is accurate that those jobs are they're all new jobs. Okay. All right.
And if I might, there are jobs being kept in the area that are not included.
Yeah, I would assume.
That are being retained rather than have nowhere to go. So there's a positive on top of that, but we didn't try to say, by the way, there are another 500 people who are going to stay here rather than be relocated somewhere else. So 735 net new jobs.
Okay. It'd be helpful to have that specific language in the just you end up wondering if there's an intent to mislead, just being candid, when the language is not very, very, very explicit. And us Detroiters were a little cynical. That's okay. At the last meeting, I pushed hard on the details around the housing component of the community benefits agreement. 2.5 million, I think, for home repair.
2 million for home repair, an additional 500,000 for rental assistance.
Okay. So let's talk about the 2 million for home repair. I was pushing hard for some assurance that that money would not be sent right back to the city to administer what can very often be painfully slow home repair work. or home repair work limited just to a certain age range. Not that I don't think senior home repair is important. I'm a senior, so I like the idea. But we need to keep that 2 million within the community for the general population. And I was pushing hard for it to be used through a partnership with an existing nonprofit that knows how to do that stuff, is mission oriented, and is not going to get tied up in a bureaucratic entanglement. So I'm asking, where are we with that?
Yeah, since we were last in front of you, we have had some positive meetings with community-based organizations about doing exactly that. So we're not at a point, 3 weeks later where we've made any firm decisions or commitments, but we've had very positive conversations, including with Central Detroit Christian, and we look forward to continuing to explore those opportunities and make sure that we're satisfying every objective that we laid out.
So if I texted Lisa right now and quoted what you just said, she would verify it?
I would certainly hope so. I went and sat down with her, I think 2 days after we were in front of you. Okay. Josh was with me. I see him back in the room. We had a very positive conversation with her. We've had some email follow-up since then, and we're planning on having more conversations with her to continue to advance that.
And she's open to it?
She said she was, yes.
All right, the other concern I raised at the last meeting was the concerns that were brought to me about how the line was drawn, defining the impact area, which in effect includes some organizations and residents and excludes others. And I was asking whether or not we could have conversation with some organizations west of Rosa Parks Boulevard about their engagement.
Yeah, I don't know if Aaron or Edwina wants to speak to the impact area.
So,
and after that, we're certainly happy to, Stephen can speak to the amount of engagement we've done outside of the impact area.
So Edwina, excuse me, would you come up front since we have you on camera, please? Are you? Can I ask you both to please introduce yourself?
Absolutely. And so hello and Happy New Year. I am Edwina King. I am the Associate Director of Legislative Affairs and Equitable Development for the City of Detroit's Planning and Development Department, which houses the Community Benefits Ordinance process.
Good afternoon, Aaron Goodman, also the Planning and Development Department, and manage the Community Benefits Ordinance process. Nice to see everyone.
Lucky you.
So thank you. And so we will definitely defer to the development team as far as what engagement looks like for those who reside outside of the impact area, but that are connected to either Henry Ford Health, MSU, or the Pistons. As far as the impact area is mentioned. And so this is a particularly unique situation. Given one, of course, the amount of money that is involved as far as development, but also the geographic locations of the impact area. And so pursuant to the ordinance, which mandates that when doing a CBO, that the impact area includes the census tract that the project is located and other areas which are deemed appropriate by the Planning and Development Department. We worked internally to come up with 3 key impact areas. So it was census tract number 5224, which is the Elijah McCoy area, if you're familiar with that area. Census tract 5326, I believe, which is north where the Henry Ford Legacy Hospital is located. And then census tract 5339, which is the area that is west where the Pistons practice facility is located. Also includes the communities of Techtown, New Center Common, and so on and so forth. And then of course the area that is where the Legacy Hospital includes is the Virginia Park community. I'm looking at Ms. Tompkins, so thank you for that reminder. And so, of course, I know there have been many concerns raised by those that are, again, feel impacted, but they did not reside near the impact area. I do want to also note that the area for Census Tract 5224 also include portions of Northwest Goldberg. So I do want to use that opportunity, or this opportunity, to clear up that misconception that this parts of that community was excluded, because that is not the case. One of the things that we were very key on is making sure that everyone is engaged. And so to that point, the census tracts that are included in this project are, I want to say it was 5,300 residents comprising 3,800 households, if my memory serves me correct. Yeah, that sounds about right. And so making sure that we engage those individuals, making sure that when you reside in the impact area, that we mail, in addition to those in the impact area, 300 feet outside. We partnered with the Department of Neighborhoods to make sure that there were boots on the ground, because not everyone checks city emails or city communication for whatever reason, but to make sure that those residents that are in the impact area and then those that are immediately adjacent to it, that they're engaged, they're informed about what's happening in their neck of the woods. And so to that point, I will again definitely, first I want to talk to Aaron, or pass it to Aaron to make sure if there's anything that needs to be added, but then also speak to, or if it's with your permission, Mr. Chair, to allow the development team to talk about what their engagement looks like. But I will close, at least my remarks, making sure that everyone understands that regardless of where you stay, we're all Detroiters. So if you're in the impact area, immediately adjacent, our town, midtown, downtown, uptown, wherever part of town you're in, or even if you're outside of the town, that you're allowed to participate in our process, that we keep our process very open, transparent, and making sure that everyone is allowed the opportunity to not only participate, but to give feedback. Per the ordinance, if we could have everyone participating in an impact area and on a NAC, we could, but our hands are tied. But the NAC is specific to those that are in the impact area. But again, we're asking for all people who are interested to come to our meetings and definitely make sure that your voice is heard.
And I appreciate being back here before you again after the holidays. The only thing I'd add is, when we do look at impact areas and boundaries and population numbers, we want to make sure that we're getting a large swath of the community. And Edwina mentioned that there are about 6,300 residents. That puts it as one of the largest impact areas that we have, which is appropriate for one of the largest projects we have. Largest population, most number of households. So I would just offer that in addition for some of the reasoning behind where the impact area was drawn as it was. Again, it included 3 census tracts, went above and beyond the requirements of the ordinance. So thank you.
Someone from the development team?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. Excuse my back. What I would like to say along with my colleagues is that we've been extremely engaged since the month of February with residents, small businesses. The list goes on as we continue to talk and discuss the development. We've been as far as Jefferson and Connor, as far as 75 and Springwells, to as far as South End and Outer Drive, talking with residents about this development and getting their ideas and thoughts. As you may have seen within the CDA, there are organizations named within the CDA that are close, very close to the development, but not necessarily in the impact area. And so we're going to continue to have those conversations as we continue to develop this project even further. But over 1,000 residents, over 100 meetings, and we'll continue to move forward in that same space of diversity, equity, and inclusion from a voice standpoint. I'll pass it to my colleagues if that's okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Barry Blackwell. I think the only thing that I would add is that, and stepping in on all the points, we've done a lot of engagement. And I think that we work from a Henry Ford perspective, we've acknowledged, and I guess the Pistons and MSU as well, we acknowledge that there are several groups that surround this campus. And we have been very intentional about digging in with them and listening to them. I have personally contacted every single a community leader that is, that runs a block club or neighborhood association or community development corporation. I have made multiple phone calls seeking their advice, seeking their input, and have invited them to participate in the CBO process, and will continue to do that. We also, at the beginning of 2021 in March, we stood up a neighborhood advisory council that is representative of all the different community groups that surround our campus. And some of those groups are inside the impact area, but a lot of those groups are not. It includes businesses, it includes students, it includes finding ways to include seniors. So we've been very intentional about making sure that the community that surrounds our campus understands that they have an opportunity to engage with us, but more importantly, that we have an opportunity to learn from them and hear their perspectives. And we're going to continue to do that throughout this process and then far beyond this process.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's, for the record, we acknowledge Board Member Mays has made an arrival. Okay, any other questions?
I'll just have one follow-up, if I may, through the chair. Again, in regards to the 2.5 million, I know we said 2 million was for home repair. Is that a one-year commitment? Is there an opportunity for that group or other groups to come back in the future? Let's say that 2 million is spent in a year or two. It went well. Would there be a possibility of additional funding for more home repair? And could other groups that didn't get funding maybe at least come to you with a proposal?
Yeah, look, the short answer is we're always open to hearing and discussing and listening to those proposals. The plan is, it is $2 million. It's limited in terms of the amount that goes to each household, but we want to touch as many homes in the development area and the impact area as we could, but we'd certainly be open to listening to additional requests and additional proposals.
Thank you.
Mr. Nowicki?
This question for Mr. Haddad. I noticed in the details of the 380 pages that we got, the developer for the housing, which is you guys who are going to get most of these benefits, and it says the housing will be developed by either PSC, Business, Palace Sports and Entertainment, or DP Amsterdam. And it wasn't clear to me who DP Amsterdam is, who are the principals, and how do we know which one of these are getting the benefits? And why can't we nail that down before we kind of approve such a big package?
Yeah, it's a great question. I can tell you that DP Amsterdam is an entity that we formed that is 100% owned by the same ownership as the Detroit Pistons within the same structure. You know, we have Pistons Sports and Entertainment. We have the Detroit Pistons Basketball Company, which owns and operates the basketball team. We have multiple entities, but any entity that we're talking about here is under the same ownership structure and under the same ownership.
So why I still don't understand why we're not just picking one and kind of being more transparent about who the principals are, you know, because the public perception, frankly, is that, you know, Mr. Goris owns everything and he's going to be the beneficiary of these tax benefits. And, you know, as you heard, people say, why does this guy need all this subsidy? So
yeah,
speak to that.
We will be fully transparent on all of it. Like I said, we have multiple entities within our ownership structure. All those entities flow up to the same ultimate owner, and DP Amsterdam is one of those. We wouldn't develop these buildings through the same entity that owns the Detroit Pistons. I think, you know, you guys can all understand and appreciate that we need to form different entities for different purposes. That's all that this is here. You know, we'll probably end up putting each of the 3 buildings in different entities, all of which will flow up to the same ownership and the same structure, but we will be fully transparent on all of that.
Any other questions?
Sure. I was hoping that you could talk about the adaptive reuse of 1/4 Place. That's one of my favorite parts of the development as we were reading through the plan. And so knowing that that's a huge undertaking that obviously got this building, just hoping to hear a little bit more about that. What's going in some of the.
I worked there in 1977.
Yeah.
Not very different.
Thanks for the question, Jose. Yeah, we're really excited to be able to transition, as things have changed with offices and officing and how people operate in offices, and it really doesn't fit an office need anymore. And we were really excited, instead of just having an abandoned building that has gone past its use, to be able to create an adaptive reuse and have the Pistons step up. When they evaluated it, I think Rich and his team could talk more about this, but they really did look at what the opportunity was, and was it a good facility to be used for housing. And when you really look at it with the windows, the corridors, the way it all comes together, it actually works very well for housing, and we're excited to have them step up. So, we're not leaving Midtown. Our leadership, all of our team is still staying in Midtown, and we will be having our headquarters there as part of this still. It just won't be in that building.
Board Member Mays?
Yes, thank you. If it's okay, I did have a few questions today. Let me start out by thanking. Am I too quiet?
Yeah, you gotta have people on the line here.
No, I'll just speak louder. So I did want to start out with a thank you and a show of appreciation. For those of you who were here at the prior meeting, I had a number of questions, some of them very pointed. And the DGC staff, as well as members of the development team, took a fair bit of time to get my questions and my concerns answered, some of which came over the holiday. And so I just wanted to just be thankful for that effort, particularly from the staff here at the Brownfield Authority. Now getting to the heart of my questions. I am always excited about economic development in Detroit. I do strongly feel like we need more of it. I do see Henry Ford in particular as a long-standing pillar, not just in this neighborhood in Detroit, in an industry that has gone through a lot of transformation over the last few years. If anyone has been close to the DMC, you know how different the DMC system is now than it was maybe. And so I just want to acknowledge that for me, the hospital system and the research center in particular feel like real strength in economic development in this area for the city. Most of my questions and concerns about this project were really related to the housing portion of it. And I missed the earlier discussion, but what I want to just say is I feel very strongly that we should collectively be embarking on a housing plan for this greater area. So not just this new center east of the Lodge, but particularly the areas to the west of the Lodge, and especially some of the parts of that neighborhood that Henry Ford has ownership. There are a lot of questions I get about what's the future of housing on that part of this development footprint. Typically the city leads this. I really am going to continue to push that within the next 9 to 12 months. There's a completed housing plan that really kind of gives not just stakeholders that live in that footprint, work in that footprint, but the housing finance is an ecosystem, and it doesn't exist in like one or two neighborhoods, and there's a lot of sequencing that happens across the city. And so just having a really clear understanding of what the vision is beyond this footprint, what the possibilities are for the housing, and especially how affordable housing layers into this is really critical. So I'll just continue to say that. I'm going to echo it. Anyone who asked me, I think very strongly there needs to be a housing plan here. I did have a specific question for the Pistons. You guys are catching the brunt of it, I think, because of your owner. I didn't see this in the plan, but are you able to tell me how much equity the development team is planning on putting into the housing portion?
Yeah, that should be in the plan. I can give you rough numbers, or Richard or Jake could give you exact.
75 million of equity.
And is that being shared across the three partners, or is that?
That is being directly contributed from equity. Detroit Vista is the entity discussion.
Okay, and is it fair for me to think of that as equity and just the housing portion of it? Fair for me to think of it that way?
The total equity across the project is 517 million, and that's for the hospital, or that's for the research center, the parking deck, and the residential projects. So the Pistons component of that is 7.
And is it fair for me for us to think of that as traditional equity as opposed to maybe some kind of like wonky in kind or, some other form of
direct cash equity?
Okay. And I assume that number is also, if this is a 10-year plan, 12-year plan, and so if one of the housing developments falls out, then that pro rata part of the equity will fall out too. This isn't sort of like day one equity injection. Okay, thank you for that. And then that I'm gonna stick on equity, the other definition of equity for a second. I think the other big challenge, and for me, personal concern about this, you're leveraging a tool that some would argue was created to help facilitate a single project in Detroit. And you're leveraging, the tool is there for others to use. And so you're leveraging what's there, which is, it's legitimate, right? It's hard to kind of push back on that. But there is a broader concern that, I hate saying powers that be, the powers that be can get very creative about solving problems at this scale and less creative about solving problems where regular developers are working, where organizations that have been rooted in neighborhoods for decades and just trying to kind of make a little bit of progress. And so you're not, I think it would be totally unfair to ask you to kind of solve that big macro thing. But I do think one thing our development team can clearly commit to are investments in this broader system of equity, right? So finding ways to use this development to allow growth for emerging developers, right? Like you're accessing a subsidy tool that the vast majority of developers would never stand a shot at, but quite frankly would be transformative for what they're trying to do in their backyards, right? And so to be able to use your project to support emerging developers so that they can build that kind of not just financial capacity, but networking capacity, deal capacity would be enormously helpful. I think the same also applies on the procurement side. All three of your organizations are well versed in doing procurement, but there's a difference between sort of just this minimal amount of procurement that could be done with disadvantaged businesses versus being very, very intentional about how can we set up structures that actually drive wealth creation, actually drive the strengthening of underrepresented businesses in Detroit. And so that's less a comment, less a question, more a comment. And I'm sure you're going to get a whole lot of feedback on ways that can be accomplished. But I would also, because we have a number of administration people here, I would say to the mayor's team, that piece of creating real equity in this project across the development and the procurement, that I would just strongly say, let's find a way to do that and tell that story and create some fairness for groups that just can't access these kind of development tools to be successful.
Yeah, I'll just say we agree wholeheartedly with all of that. We're committed to both creative and intentional. So all that.
All right.
Follow-up question.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
Did I hear correctly that in the negotiation for the community benefits agreement, there was a request for the team to contribute to both the Affordable Housing Leverage Fund and the Detroit Housing Trust Fund, and that was not agreed to by the development team? Is that a correct statement?
That's correct, yes.
Can you tell me why you opted not to contribute to those two funds?
Yes, through our conversations with the NAC, they prioritized the home repair fund and the rental assistance fund above the other two. So we had a lot of meetings, as you all know. We had a lot of conversations, but what came out of that is what was most important to the NAC, were the two funds that we ultimately did contribute
Why
to.
couldn't it be at both ends? Did they have to prioritize because you told them they had to?
No, we didn't force anybody to prioritize anything. We did ask them where their priorities were. And what came back to us is it was more important to them that we commit the funds to the places that we did than the additional asks. We got a lot of asks. We weren't going to be able to agree to all of the asks. You know, we got initially 165 asks from the NAC, which when we quantified them came out to between $2.5 and $3 billion. So we weren't going to be in position to agree to everything. That's why through the process, they came back to us and told us where their priorities were, and we tried to address those priorities as well as we could.
Okay, my next question is, I think, Barry, was it you who talked about the Neighborhood Advisory Council?
Yes.
So can we assume that this is a continuous relationship, a continuous structure that's going to be in place?
Yes.
Well, to be clear, Barry wasn't talking with the Neighborhood Advisory.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Not the NAC.
Not the NAC, right.
You referenced setting up a Neighborhood Advisory Council.
Yes.
And blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, so to be clear, we have a group of neighbors, let's call it for the sake of this conversation, a steering committee, right? That we work with as an organization. These are neighbors that are surrounding our campus, and some that aren't surrounding. And so to answer your question, yes, this is an ongoing engagement process that we're going to be doing.
And someone from Henry Ford is going to be staffing it, making sure it happens, documenting it, reporting on what you're agreeing to.
Yes.
Then could that be a structure and process by which, Mr. Haddad, you said that you would be open to?
Yes, absolutely.
Even though you're the Pistons and this advisory council is a Henry Ford Health System thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked during the CBO process about that very group being able to morph into a partnership group for continued work. We left that table, right? I think being educated and understanding the magnitude of issues that we couldn't resolve, but we committed through both this partnership and then sometimes there's other resources and partnerships that we have to try to go back to some of the things that were high priority, but didn't come out as things that we actually documented in the benefit agreement. So absolutely, it can cover the whole project.
Because I reference back to Sonia's comment. We really, you can't be expected to solve the fundamental systemic problem in this city in regard to housing, which in my mind is the stripping of wealth from Detroit's Black community through a variety of means over time. And the fact that we have no strategy in the city to make home ownership affordable and accessible. I don't care what anybody says about all the bank's fancy programs that are being announced. It's a huge challenge. And we tend to prioritize many other projects, investing multiple millions of dollars, and we can't seem to bring ourselves to prioritize what we know has to be an investment, a deep investment in affordable home ownership for Detroiters. And that's my concern when I raise questions about, same questions as Sonia about the housing component of this. When I raise questions about the impact area, what I'm really talking about is, can we get beyond hundreds of luxury rental units and a few, relatively few, affordable rental units, and really try to get to the deeper problem in this community? 2 million home repair is good. It's wonderful. It's not nearly enough. The fact that you opted not to contribute to these other two funds, to me, is just a real shame. It's a real shame. Tom Gores could write a check right now for that amount of money as a contribution. And that's what people tend to get, really tense about. So I just want to ask that you use this ongoing relationship and structure to really please try to dig deeper into this community, really push hard for conversations about affordable home ownership, about folks outside the prescribed line, which I know I don't envy your job of having to draw that line, but my goodness, this is a huge project. It is transformation. And I'll just end by saying that I continue to have concerns about the housing component. I do applaud Henry Ford Health System. Can anybody name another health system that's actually expanding a hospital inside the city limits? I don't think so. Is there another one anywhere?
Not that I'm aware of.
Yeah, we got Beaumont, Corwell going over here. We got other folks going over there, and it's always outside the city boundary. So I applaud you for that, and I'm excited by it, and that's going to be reflected in my vote today. But I am just having too hard a time with the housing piece. And I've said this to very many people. I have an extremely hard time understanding why a transformational brownfield benefit is even necessary or important. This is huge subsidy. It's huge taxpayer subsidy. So I'm just putting that out there. And I say that with respect to the team, all the work you're doing, blah, blah, blah. But please try to carry this on beyond the little tight line that's going to have some luxury apartments in it mostly, in addition to the hospital work. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I can, it's like, no, because we're going to, if I can just quickly, right?
Yes,
Just quickly, and respond in earnest, right? Because I respect Maggie so much and I don't want to leave without being able to say this, right? So from a Henry Ford perspective, and I've said this and I get it from every time I do, because I'm not an expert in the housing space, but know that we have been committed to doing what we could in terms of encouraging people living in the community even before this project, right? And there were many other partners that did this around subsidy to either do home repair or do renting and home ownership. And please know for us, we understand the deep need for housing. And while we respect and understand that we are learning that the project that we're putting forward may have, right, its blemishes and it doesn't necessarily fit the profile, we were encouraged, quite honestly, educated by one of your board members around what a housing plan could do to help us to be a stronger advocate and partner in that regard. So we do commit to you. It may not be literally a this project, but I can tell you as an organization that I'm incredibly proud to be a part of that's been there for 109 years. We want to be there for another 100 years. There's absolutely no benefit to us to not have that community be thriving.
No,
So
I
we commit to you that we will continue to partner to make that happen.
There are so many examples of health systems across the country that have purchased the expertise they need to do the right thing on housing, and you can follow their example.
All right, thank you, board members. We're calling for the motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Okay, board member DeSantis,
So I'm going to abstain.
board member Dewey,
No.
board member Elias,
Yes.
board member George,
Yes.
board member Lambus,
Yes.
board member Mays,
Yes.
board member McLean,
Yes.
board member Gonzalez,
Yes.
board chair Scott,
Yes.
resolution passes.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
The right thing.
Those scholarships.
All right, next on our agenda is administrative.